Well, it's obviously going to be tremendously colored by what's happening on the presidential trail, and nobody wants to do anything that will disrupt their favorite candidate's campaign. So we're going to see a Congress marked more by inaction than action, probably. There's certainly a handful of must-pass bills that are going to move through Congress, but they're going to do so primarily in a non-controversial fashion. There's not going to be a whole lot of heated battles on the floor of Congress, in my opinion, in the next year. And they'll save most of that either for a lame duck session after the presidential election has taken place, or perhaps, depending on how the election turns out, for 2017 when there's a new president.
Representing the National Taxpayers Union, obviously you're most interested in what happens on the tax front or the spending front. Anything big that we can expect there?
I don't know if there'll be major action. The new Speaker of the House, Paul Ryan, certainly wants to advance something on the tax reform front, and we are generally supportive of tax reform. Some of the reforms that he's talked about and some of the negotiations he's been having with Chuck Schumer, senator from New York, have been less than encouraging, I would say, because they're realizing that the art of the possible here is what's driving the process, and because there's a Democrat in the White House, because they don't have a supermajority of Republicans in the Senate, they have to be very cognizant of Democratic priorities when they're advancing tax reform. That means they've almost essentially taken individual reform off the table, which is disappointing. And on the corporate side, they've really limited the window of what they could possibly act on to something dealing primarily with international reform. There's a lot of changes that need to happen to the tax code, but you only get so many bites at the apple, especially when you're looking at making the kind of substantive changes that we really need. So the initial conversations, I think, are less than encouraging, but at the same time, we don't want to do anything that might slow or delay the tax reform conversation. We want that conversation to advance. We just hope it's going to end up in a place that's, a positive place for taxpayers and businesses alike.